Mr. Sharish Joshi is an emerging Asian markets expert. He holds 33 years of experience, 22 in India, 9 years in China, and 2 in Southeast Asia. So he basically holds experience in India equivalent to my age, and then some more. So we can imagine the expertise that he holds. His areas of interest include FMCG, telecom, appliances, retail, properties, furniture, B2B, premium beauty care, e-commerce, just to name a few. Over to you, sir.
To the Expand My Business team for inviting me here, and congratulations on your first event. Looks like it's off to a great start. I think we are beginning a journey with ONDC, which is not just going to be the ONDC organization and its team. It's going to be all of you. And in the next few minutes, hopefully I'll be able to help establish why that is. Part of what I will talk about is explaining what ONDC is, and then, as befits this forum, talk about some initial ideas that SMEs and startups can take on. Can we start? We're experiencing what many startups go through. We planned everything, thought everything, tested it, and when the moment comes, right? Thank you. We can go to the first slide. Next. Okay, so when we think about commerce, right, we have to think about every possible kind of commerce. It's not just about e-commerce. The whole idea is let's first begin with commerce, and then look to enable all dimensions of it. And commerce isn't just one or two big names that we tend to think of, especially when we think about e-commerce. It's items you buy for the home, it's items you buy for the office, it's items you might gift, it is your travel, it is your food, it is the services you buy, it's your education, everything you do, including setting up a conference. Can you buy services to set up a conference? Probably not today. So every service, every product that you can buy is commerce. And real commerce is really everyone's commerce. Every scale of operator, every size of operator, every type of operator. When you combine all of that and you accommodate all of that and you include all of that is really when you're getting to commerce. So that really is the vision of ONDC, which is to enable all aspects of commerce initially in this country and then eventually beyond. And we'll talk a little bit about that beyond as well. That's the mission of ONDC. Next slide, please. One of the most visual metaphors you can have. Next slide, please. One of the most visual metaphors you can have for democratization are Indian highways. All you've got to do is look at any of our Indian highways and you see true democracy. You see trucks, you see buses, you see tempo, you see taxis, you see auto rickshaws, you see handcarts, you see motorcycles, cycles, people on feet, all sorts of motion taking place and all sorts of goods movement. And that just gives you one metaphor in terms of what's missing today. So when you think about e-commerce, you think about basically bike-ridden people who are delivering stuff, regardless of what the origin was. It could be hyper-local, you picked up food from a restaurant and delivered it home. Or it could be an item you ordered, a shirt or a charger, and that gets delivered home. But look at the variety of delivery systems that are visible in just one photograph. And so when we really want to build an inclusive universe, we want to be able to enable all types of creators, all types of service providers into a single network to be able to do commerce and thereby create many different kinds of solutions. Next slide. So let's look at what happens in e-commerce, in digital commerce. Any platform we go to has broadly activities that can be divided into three groups. One group of activities we do as shoppers. We look for products, we filter that list, we add to cart, we make a payment, and we start receiving tracking information. That's the buyer interface. That's one set of activities. when the people we are buying from, the sellers, they have a different interface. That's where they're uploading their catalog, updating their inventory. When an order comes, they're accepting that order, they're managing that order. If there is a modification to that order, like a cancellation or a refund or a replacement, all of that interface is the seller interface. And when the product is physical, an item is getting picked up from the seller's location and being delivered to us buyer location, then there are delivery services. So all e-commerce platforms have activities that you can broadly group into these three. They are connected to each other through a protocol that is proprietary to that organization. And that's how we know e-commerce today. E-commerce we know today as the way in which a single entity is bringing together all these parts. There is interface with the human at the buyer end, at the seller end, at the delivery end, and then there is digital technology that stitches it all together. Now if you go to another platform, click once more, you'll see the same behavior, and platforms don't talk to each other. ONDC is now looking at commerce differently. Now, if you take this entire set of activities apart and you say we do not require one entity to do all activities, we unbundle commerce. So different entities now do different parts of the e-commerce value chain. There is still a protocol that connects them. So you still get the same end result that you get from a platform. There is a seamless experience for a buyer who's shopping on some buying application that searches for products that sellers have registered. I see them, add to cart, make the payment, all of that, and then a delivery service is getting connected. So the end experience is identical, which begins with search all the way to tracking and receiving their item. But the way it is being done is through two important differences, unbundling and interoperability, because these entities need to interoperate. Now, you might ask, what is the big deal about, first of all, unbundling? And secondly, will this really make any meaningful difference? We're just simply rearranging the same parts. So if you think about unbundling, unbundling we experience in many walks of our life today. We just don't experience it in e-commerce. In fact, we have come to believe that unless everything is stitched together by one party, it will probably not work. But we do unbundling in all our lives constantly. If you think about the entire BPO industry, what is BPO but unbundling? Companies have decided and have consistently stayed with it that certain work processes are better run and more efficiently run by somebody outside. So companies have unbundled long ago, which is why India is such a big BPO center. Products have been unbundled. I do not know of any single significant automaker that makes its own tires. Does that mean we get bumpy rides? No, we don't. So unbundling has been present everywhere, and I'm sure even for this conference, the organizers probably had to go to multiple parties to bring it together. No one single vendor put everything together. So unbundling is how we get to the most optimal, efficient, effective solutions everywhere in our life, except in e-commerce. And so it should not be a surprise that e-commerce entities are challenged profitably. Because imagine if you told every airline that you have to stitch everything end to end. You build the airport, you build the runway, you organize the security, you run everything end to end as one entity. Only then we'll have a seamless experience. Even the few airlines that make money would stop making money. So that is not the most optimal services. And I don't know how many of you who fly realize that an average flight will get you through 7 organizations. There's one organization whose taxi you've taken to the airport, second organization whose security you've passed through, third organization that is running the airport, the fourth one is the airline you're flying, and then the same thing on the other side. Right? Is that not a seamless experience? It is. So unbundling is how the world works, except e-commerce. And that is the fundamental change that is going to come as ONDC comes into play. Change slide, please. So what we should get to is a world where different companies are doing different parts. Everybody interacts with each other. And now we do not require a buyer and seller to be in the same application, the way we are required to do today. So a buyer can be on any application, a seller can be on any application, logistics provider on any other application, but they can still come together and provide you an e-commerce solution. Right? So this interoperability where anyone combines with everyone actually is what leads to democratization. Let's see how that works. One more change. So we get to a network where you have different people contributing buyers, different people contributing sellers, different people contributing logistics providers. Now, how does this make anything different? Let's just take the buyer side of the activity. You have organizations that have a user base for something. So you have a bank that has a user base of bank customers. You have a television channel that has a user bank of viewers. You have a social media company that has a user bank of generators and consumers. So there are many organizations that just have a user bank. They're not e-commerce organizations. But if you have a user base and you can either build or acquire a digital layer that connects you with ONDC, you can become a buyer application. And so different people will contribute buyers. Today we have 2 banks, Kotak and Axis Bank, which are contributing buyers to the network. We have 2 payment companies, Paytm and PhonePe, contributing to the buyer pool. And we have many other organizations which have nothing to do with e-commerce today coming into play. We have a telecom company that is now in significant stage of integration, and when they join, we'll have a few 100 million buyers on the network. And just think about that. If just the 3 telecom companies, nobody else, if just the 3 telecom companies join ONDC, we'll have more than 1 billion buyers on the network. So this is not a small play. And when you allow multiple people to participate, you will be bigger than what any individual organization can be. And because you've unbundled and allowed the interoperability, like with the BPO system, you'll be more effective and more efficient. That's the fundamental premise of ONDC. Next slide. That was the theory. This is the reality. So what was theory a year ago, this is the concept, has now become real. We have multiple buyer applications, we have multiple seller applications, we have thousands of sellers, lakhs of SKUs, and thousands of orders already taking place across various categories. We have food orders, we have grocery orders, electronics, apparel. We even have farmers selling on the network and farmers buying on the network. We have National Seed Corporation of India that has seeds and saplings on the network, so farmers can buy that, grow their stuff. And in fact, the first order last year, April, on ONDC, was actually coriander grown on a terrace farm in Bangalore that was placed, ordered, and delivered on the same day. So anything can be on the network, and now you have a reality with move past theory where thousands of orders are taking place, and we are looking at the pipeline of thousands of organizations who are now in various stages of integration with ONDC. Next slide. This is just a snapshot of some of the new organizations that are likely to come, and again you will see that most of the names on this are actually not e-commerce entities. So now anybody can participate, and collectively the entire ecosystem is going to build an e-commerce network that will be unparalleled. Next slide. Here are a few examples of the kind of people who could have never dreamed of being on e-commerce, and they are on e-commerce today. So today we have silk sari weavers from Kanjipuram who are on the network as themselves. We have somebody who's doing a very different kind of a restaurant in Jammu, sourcing only local materials, low carbon footprint. That restaurant is on the network. Next one. We have people who make beauty care products that are built with a certain philosophy of being very safe, being no animal testing, and so following a lot of the new values that companies are looking to incorporate available on the network. We have people who are making traditional products like disposable plates and utensils out of natural material available on the network. None of these could have dreamt to be on e-commerce today. But you sitting in Delhi can place orders on this today. So that's just an example of what gets included, which should now start changing the mind of everybody in this room and saying, what business are we in? And if such a capability is now available to us, what more could we do with the business idea that we've already started? And the capabilities that we are creating for the businesses we've started, where else could we apply them to now that a facility of this is available? Now, it does not mean that we have solved everything. There are many things that we are still building. Why does scale happen on e-commerce? It happens because people are able to trust a completely unknown buyer because of reputation. And so we're building the reputation component. Today, if you go on and buy through one of the ONDC applications, reputation is not available. But we are building that. And so once reputation is available, it does two things. One, it allows buyers and sellers to interact with entities they've not interacted with before. But more importantly, many more people can build reputation on the network, which they don't have today. And they can begin by migrating existing trusted relationships. So all of the sellers that I pointed out to you who are live, they can actually get their existing customers to buy from them on ONDC through any application. It doesn't require a specific application. Like the internet, where users of the internet can see all websites regardless of the browser use and regardless of the platform on which the website is hosted, because all users on all browsers see all websites on all platforms. It's universal. Similarly, on ONDC, all buyers on all buyer applications will see all sellers on all seller applications, universal. So now it does not matter where the buyer and seller is. And so people are now discovering that they're able to bring existing customers. So a seller can WhatsApp their link, their deep link to their own existing customers who can go and shop on ONDC, leave a good rating so that now when new shoppers come and discover their products, they're starting with a positive rating. Important thing about reputation and rating, right? Who builds that reputation? It's the seller who's built it. It's the seller's effort. It should be the seller's asset. The product has built a reputation because it's the makers of the product who have created a product of a certain quality. It is their effort, their asset. But it's not available to them. So when that today in e-commerce, when that product registers on a new platform, you have to start from zero. When the seller joins a new platform, you start from zero. It's their effort, their asset, not available to them, not so on ONDC. It's the product's asset, which is linked with the product. It's the seller's asset, linked with the seller. So if the seller decides to change the seller application through which they're connected, the reputation travels with them. Reputation is not just a rating by a customer. That's what we will begin with, that's what is familiar, but only 1 to 2% of customers give rating. Now, why should 100% of the people trust what 2% of the people have done? And often that's when the customer is unhappy that they want to leave a tough rating out there. So that's not objective. But there are many objective parameters. So how often did a shipper ship on time? What percentage of the products they sold had a problem? How many of those problems got resolved? These are objective performance measures. And so even without having a single person rating you, you will have objective performance measures. So over time, this reputation will not be a single dimensional customer rating of their experience. It will also include parameters that go much beyond that, much richer, and therefore allow a much more objective and a broader perspective of reputation. Reconciliation, right? E-commerce is not as simple and straightforward as physical commerce. So if I'm selling, let's say, a 10 rupee bottle of water, a customer walks into my store, he gives me 10 rupees and I give him the bottle and we are done, right? It's very simple. What is not kept fresh in mind at that point in time is that that 10 rupee bottle the retailer bought for 9 rupee 20 paisa from the distributor who bought it from the water company at 8 rupee 70 paisa. And so there have been multiple transactions behind that. But all that is complication doesn't happen in physical commerce. For a year, this retailer will send his goods, and then come end March, he will file for tax and put everything together and does it. But e-commerce doesn't work that way. In every transaction, there's going to be a tax that is deducted. There are shares of various parties who are involved that will get done. So when a 10 rupee bottle gets sold, the seller is not getting 10 rupees today, which he's then reconciling differently in future. He'll actually get a different amount. It might be like 8 rupees 20 paisa. He might not get it all on the same day. He might get some on the day the order gets shipped. He might get the balance when the order reaches the customer, depending on what the terms of agreement are. So managing your accounts and finances is actually not so simple in e-commerce. Therefore, reconciliation services are important. Today, seller applications are providing rudimentary reconciliation services, but we are building reconciliation tools that will do it at scale. So it won't work just when we are at thousands of orders per day, it will work when we are at millions and even billions of orders per day. We also expect there to be new kinds of services to come into play. So think about envelopes. Having an A4 envelope or A4 paper is standard. Anybody can make it. So you do not require specific parties to build specific kinds of structures. Now, in e-commerce, delivery companies all have their own packages. They're barcoded for that company's structure, and they will decide what to pack what in, and it's unique to them. But there should come a time when these are standard public information. So any store owner can just simply go and buy them, literally like you go to a stationery store or post office, and just buy some standard packaging and be able to be e-commerce compliant without having to contract a particular manufacturer or having to work with a particular entity. And they'll come pre-barcoded, so he doesn't even have to print an address or a name and stick it to the envelope. Like the speed post pre-stickers that are available in post offices, they just simply stick it on. These will come pre-barcoded. So that's just a microcosm of some of the things that the ecosystem has begun thinking about to enable. Because once ONDC is there, it automatically fuels new ideas. One more. And finally, badging. Badging is a way by which sellers can begin to differentiate themselves or at least establish a greater degree of trust even if they have no transaction. We have organizations who are working with us who have for years been helping small enterprises, right? MSMEs, but particularly micro enterprises. SIDBI is one, Tata Trust is another. And so you might have, let's say, some Rakesh Sharma enterprises in Gorakhpur coming up as a seller, and you might not know what that means. But if it comes with a badge saying this is a Tata Trust supported enterprise or it's a SIDBI supported enterprise, suddenly you feel differently about that entity. So badging is where an additional information that is verifiable or certifiable, or like a GI tag. You want to buy something that is GI tag. You want to buy saffron that has actually been grown in Kashmir, or you want to buy Alfonsos that have been grown in Ratnagiri and not in UP. GI tags will help you do that. So creating badges that help authenticity, source, or verification of some kind will also become a tool. So as a network, all these facilities are now universal, right? So everything that's on the screen is getting built. This is not ready, but just gives you a sense of this is not going to be a one-stop journey that you turn a switch on and we are done. This is going to be a journey of a few years.